In this video, I'm going to compare all the 2-room flexi in the upcoming July BTO launch to find out which one is the best buy. We are going to compare the location, the amenities, and which project that I think will give you the best chance to secure a flat. Let's start with the proximity to the train station and on-site facilities. For this upcoming July launch, interestingly, almost all of the BTO projects have 2-room flexi options except for one project. That is great, meaning that you have 7 BTO to choose from. Most of them are within walking distance to either an MRT or LRT station. For the Tanglin BTO and Sembawang BTO specifically, seniors would probably be more comfortable taking a short bus ride to the train station. Walking actually is also possible, but it can be like 15 minutes depending on how fast you walk. In terms of the on-site facilities, the good news is 5 of these BTOs will come with an eating house, so you can just go downstairs for a quick bite. Tanglin BTO and Tampines BTO will even come with a supermarket on the site, while Clementi BTO will come with a mini mart. Now let's talk about something that is rarely being discussed. Which project gives a higher chance for singles? The common suggestion that is usually being given, oh, just apply in non-mature areas, but I'm going to show you with data that suggestion is not necessarily suitable for singles. You see, HDB has this rule whereby at least 40% of the 2-room flexi will be allocated to seniors. And there is a caveat that they put, subject to a minimum of 100 units on each project. So, in this table, I have summarized the number of 2-room flexi flats for each project in July BTO. Now, let's calculate how many flats are allocated for seniors by timing the 2-room flexi units with 40%. Interestingly, for all of the projects, the 40% is less than 100 units. That means the seniors will be allocated at least 100 units on each project. But there's a dominant effect to that because families and single applicants need to share the balance units. According to HDB website, singles are allocated 65% of the balance 2-room flexi after they set aside the allocation for seniors. So, if we times the balance with 65%, then you'll get these numbers. For example, in Bukit Panjang BTO, only 13 2-room flexi units are allocated for singles. Again, only 13. Woodlands, on the other hand, although it is also a non-mature town, but in this BTO, you will have around 78 units of 2-room flexi allocated for singles. Looking at this data, I can conclude that the generic advice to just apply for non-mature towns is not necessarily effective for singles. If you have your heart set on living in mature towns, the highest number of flat allocation for singles is located in either Tanglin BTO or Clementi BTO. What about seniors? Well, as you can see, for each project, senior will have at least 100 units allocated for them, so it just comes down to your preference. Now let's talk about the hawker centers around the project. For Toa Payoh BTO, Clementi BTO, Woodlands BTO, and Bukit Panjang BTO, you still have food center options around 500 meters from the project, so it is still considered within walking distance. But for Tanglin BTO and Tampines BTO, they are quite far from hawker centers, and you would have to take a bus. I guess that is why HDB will build an eating house on the premise. However, the watch out is for Sembawang because they are actually far from hawker centers, but at the same time, they also do not have an eating house planned on the site. So this is something that you need to take note of, especially if you are the type of person who doesn't cook at home. How about distance to the nearest clinics and hospitals? I'd figure that this is something that is relevant to know, especially for seniors. When I did my research, I was pleasantly surprised that most of the projects actually do have clinics or even hospitals nearby within the 500-600 meters away. For Clementi BTO specifically, according to the map provided by HDB, there will be a polyclinic relocating next to the site, so that would be very convenient. The watchout would be for Woodlands and Sembawang because the nearest healthcare facilities are quite far. Okay, let's recap. If you are a single person, I would not recommend applying to Bukit Panjang BTO simply because based on the numbers, singles only have around 13 flats of 2-room flexi allocated. If you want to live in a mature town, I highly recommend applying for the Tanglin BTO or Clementi BTO simply because the numbers are on your favor. If you are okay with non-mature areas and just want to get a roof on top of your head, Woodlands gives you the best chance in securing a flat. If you are senior, I think my first choice would be Clementi BTO and my second choice would be Toa Payoh BTO. Why? Well, they both have an eating house on the site and another hawker center within walking distance. Clementi has an edge because it would have a mini-mart on the side and it will also be within walking distance to different malls, whereas if you live in the Toa Payoh BTO, you would have to take a bus to get more amenities. In Clementi, you will also have a polyclinic next door, while for Toa Payoh BTO, Mount Alvernia Hospital is relatively close as well. Disclaimer that these are just my personal opinion and I am not an expert. I'm just some random YouTuber, so please do your own due diligence before you make a choice. Now let's talk about topics related to room flexi that many people are asking, such as eligibility, leasehold, subsidy recovery, and what are the difference between two-room flexi type 1 and type 2. Okay, let's talk about eligibility. HDB two-room flexi BTO flats are typically meant for single-person households or the elderly. But of course, the flat could also accommodate a couple or a small family. The biggest change is now, singles above the age of 35 will be able to apply for two-room flexi flats in all locations from upcoming BTO launch and not only in the non-mature areas. This leads to our next topic, which is the lease for two-room flexi flats. Two-room flexi is unique because it has the option for a shorter lease term. If you are above the age of 55, then you are eligible to buy the flat at a shorter lease of between 15 to 45 years in 5-year increments. But the lease must cover you or the youngest buyer until the age of 95. So you can't just anyhow pick the lowest lease to pay the cheapest price. The intention is to give retirees an option so that you have more money for retirement instead of having all of your assets locked up in a flat that is now too big for you once all of your kids have already left the house. Another unique thing about the two-room flexi scheme is that Singaporeans above the age of 55 are allowed to apply for it even though you have purchased 2 new flats directly from HDB in the past. However, if you have used up your 2 chances in the past, you can only opt for the short lease option and you have to pay a resale levy adjusted from $30,000 depending on the length of the lease. Please note that your monthly household income should not exceed $14,000. But the interesting part is, they don't take your savings into consideration. So let's say in the past you have a 4-room flat and then you sell it. Let's say you have profited $500,000. Some goes to your CPF, some goes to bank account as savings. But since you are retirees, you don't have a monthly income, which means your monthly income is under $14,000, right? Even though asset-wise, you have quite a lot of money in the bank. So that sounds great, right? So what about singles above the age of 35 but under 55 years old? Well, since you are still in the productive age range, you can only buy two-room flexi flat with the standard 99-year leasehold and your monthly household income ceiling is $7,000 because you are buying it as a single person. Of course, there are other eligibility requirements such as if you are buying the flat with other applicants, then one of you must be a Singaporean citizen, or if you have other HDB flat, then you have to dispose it within 6 months of completing your flat purchase, etc. For more details about eligibility, please do visit the HDB website. Now let's talk about whether or not two-room flexi is subjected to the subsidy recovery or subsidy clawback for prime and plus projects because I know there are a lot of confusion about this. The answer is, it depends. If you are buying two-room flexi on shorter lease, then no, you are not subjected to subsidy recovery. Why? Because you can only sell the flat back to HDB. You cannot sell it in the open market anyway. But remember that only seniors can buy two-room flexi on short lease. On the other hand, if you are buying a two-room flexi with the 99-year leasehold, then yes, you are still subjected to subsidy recovery for plus and prime projects regardless of your age. How much is the subsidy recovery percentage? Well, it depends on the project. For example, if we take a look at the October BTO launch, it ranges between 6 to 8% and it will be calculated against the valuation or transaction price, whichever higher. You might ask, what about the MOP? Is two-room flexi still subjected to the 10-year MOP if it's a plus or a prime project? From HDB's press release, it seems like the answer is yes. I mean, for the 99-year leasehold two-room flexi, right, I think it makes sense if you still have the 10-year MOP. What I'm not so sure about is if it's on a shorter lease term. I couldn't find the straight answer online, but because the HDB's press release about the MOP doesn't specify a breakdown based on the flat type, then I assume it's applicable for all flat types. Let me know if you have more information than I do. Now let's talk about what's the difference between two-room flexi type 1 and type 2. The easiest way to explain is probably with the picture. Here is an example of the typical two-room flexi type 1. As you can see, you have a bedroom, a living room, a bathroom, a kitchen, and a bomb shelter. The size is typically around 38 square meters, which I think is good enough for singles or for a couple. Based on their HDB showroom flat that I have visited in the past, the bedroom can still fit a queen-size bed and a sliding wardrobe, so it's not so bad. But obviously, if you live in a two-room flexi, you have to be well organized as you can run out of space really quickly. Now, let's take a look at the floor plan of a typical two-room flexi type 2. It's very similar, but the difference is that you have this study room in the flat as well. It's not exactly a second bedroom because typically the size is very small and it won't fit a queen bed or a wardrobe, but it's good enough for a home office or a hobby room, whatever you want to use it for. The size of a two-room flexi type 2 is typically 48 square meters, so probably a couple with a child can still live there. Hopefully this helps. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye!